When thoughts of comparison come, shake them off. When distractions try to pull you away, stay focused. When others try to make you feel less than, stand tall in who God created you to be. Because here's the truth, God didn't create you to be a copy. He created you to be an original. He didn't design you to fit in. He designed you to stand out. He didn't call you to watch others' success. He called you to walk in your own success. Today, I want to talk to you about something that can revolutionize your life, focusing on yourself instead of others. You see, God didn't create you to live comparing yourself to anybody else. He created you as an original, not a copy. You are a masterpiece in progress. So, the Bible tells us in Galatians 6:4, each one should test their own actions. Then they can take pride in themselves alone without comparing themselves to someone else. Notice it doesn't say to measure yourself against your neighbor, your coworker, or even your family members. Let me tell you something powerful today. When you're too focused on what others are doing, you're going to miss what God is doing in your own life. You're going to overlook the seeds of greatness He's planted within you. You're going to bypass your own destiny while watching someone else's journey. You know, we live in a world of social media where it's so easy to get caught up in what everybody else is doing. People posting their highlights, their victories, their best moments. But let me tell you, nobody posts their struggles, their doubts, their midnight tears. You're comparing your behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel. Think about David. When he faced Goliath, he refused to wear Saul's armor. Everyone told him he needed it, that it was the conventional way to fight. But David understood something profound. What works for others might not work for you. He had to stay focused on his own strategy, his own strengths, his own relationship with God. Some of you today are wearing someone else's armor. You're trying to live someone else's life, follow someone else's path, fulfill someone else's calling. But I want to tell you, it's time to take off that armor. It's time to be who God created you to be. Let me tell you about my friend Michael. He spent years trying to build his business like his successful older brother. Same industry, same strategy, same approach. But nothing seemed to work. Then one day, Michael did something powerful. He stopped looking at his brother's path and started seeking God for his own path. You see, when you focus on yourself instead of others, you're not being selfish, you're being strategic. You're positioning yourself to hear God's specific instructions for your life. Your breakthrough is tied to your focus. Think about Moses. When God called him, he started making comparisons. But Lord, I can't speak well. Send someone else. He was focused on what others could do better. But God wasn't looking for better. He was looking for Moses. He had already equipped Moses with everything he needed for his assignment. Some of you today are saying, but they're more talented, they're more educated, they have better connections. Let me tell you something, stop diminishing what God has given you. Your gift may be different, but it's not less. Your path may be unique, but it's not inferior. You know, in the Bible, Peter got distracted looking at John's journey. He asked Jesus, Lord, what about him? But Jesus' response was profound. He said, what is that to you? You must follow me. In other words, stay focused on your own lane. Let me tell you something powerful. When you're too busy looking at someone else's grass, you forget to water your own. When you're too focused on their promotion, their relationship, their breakthrough, you miss the seeds God is trying to plant in your own life. Think about Joseph in prison. He didn't spend his time comparing his situation to others who were free. He stayed focused on being his best right where he was. He understood something powerful. Your future isn't determined by what others are doing. It's determined by what you're doing with what God has given you. You see, when Joseph focused on developing himself, on being faithful where he was planted, God was orchestrating his promotion behind the scenes. He went from the prison to the palace, not by watching others, but by watching over his own character, his own gifts, his own assignment. Let me tell you something today, somebody else's success is not your failure. Their promotion is not your demotion. Their blessing doesn't mean God forgot about you. He has more than enough blessings to go around. But here's the key, you've got to stay focused on your own growth, your own development, your own relationship with Him. Think about Esther. When she was preparing to meet the king, she didn't ask for what all the other women were requesting. She didn't try to copy their strategy. She listened to the wisdom God gave her through Higai. She stayed focused on her unique preparation, and that's what made her stand out. Some of you today are trying so hard to fit in that you're missing out on your opportunity to stand out. You're so focused on blending in that you're bypassing your blessing. God didn't create you to be like everybody else. He created you to be distinctively you. You know, in the parable of the talents, each servant received a different amount. But notice they weren't judged based on what the other servants had. They were judged based on what they did with what they were given. The one with 2 talents wasn't expected to produce 5. He just had to be faithful with his 2. Let me tell you about my friend Sarah. She was always comparing her small business to the big corporations in her industry. She felt inadequate, overwhelmed, like she could never measure up. But then she made a decision to focus on her unique strengths, her personal touch, her specialized service. Today, Sarah's business is thriving, not because she tried to be a big corporation, but because she focused on being the best version of herself. She understood something powerful. You don't have to be everything to everybody. You just have to be who God called you to be. Listen carefully. When you're constantly looking at others, you're going to miss the miracles God is working in your own life. You're going to overlook the small beginnings that He's trying to bless. Remember, the scripture says, don't despise the day of small beginnings. Some of you are so busy watching what everybody else is doing on social media that you're not developing what God put on the inside of you. You're spending hours scrolling through other people's lives when you could be scrolling through the possibilities in your own life. Think about Noah. For 120 years, he built that ark while others were probably living their best lives, partying, achieving success in the world's eyes. But Noah stayed focused on his assignment. He didn't get distracted by what others were doing or saying. He kept his eyes on his own purpose. Let me tell you something powerful. What God has for you is for you. Nobody else can walk your path. Nobody else can fulfill your purpose. Nobody else can live your life. But here's the key. You've got to be focused enough to discover it, develop it, and deploy it. You know, when Jesus went to heal blind Bartimaeus, the crowds tried to silence him. They tried to discourage him, but Bartimaeus stayed focused on his own miracle. He didn't care what others thought or said. He knew his breakthrough was tied to his focus. Think about Ruth. When Orpah turned back, Ruth could have compared herself and done the same thing. But she understood something profound. Somebody else's exit might be your entrance. Somebody else's rejection might be your direction. But you've got to stay focused on your own journey. And that's what I love about Ruth's story. She didn't let someone else's decision determine her destiny. She stayed focused on what she knew God was calling her to do. As a result, she went from being a widow to becoming part of the lineage of Jesus Christ. Let me tell you something today. When you focus on yourself, you're not being self-centered, you're being purpose-centered. You're saying, God, I trust that you have a specific plan for my life, and I'm gonna give it my full attention. You know, in this social media age, it's so easy to get caught up in the comparison trap. To people posting their new house, new car, new relationship. But let me tell you, while you're focused on their highlight reel, you're missing your own movie. While you're watching their story, you're not writing your own. Think about Daniel in Babylon. He could have compared himself to others who were compromising, who were fitting in, who were taking the easy route. But Daniel stayed focused on his own convictions, his own standards, his own relationship with God. As a result, he stood out in a system designed to make him blend in. Some of you today are compromising your standards because you're looking at what everybody else is doing. You're lowering your expectations because you're focused on how others are living. But I want to tell you, what's popular isn't always right. And what's right isn't always popular. Let me tell you about my friend Marcus. He was a talented musician, always comparing himself to others in the industry. He would say they have better equipment, better connections, better opportunities. But one day, Marcus made a decision to focus on developing his own unique sound, his own style, his own gift. Today, Marcus is successful not because he became like everyone else, but because he became more of who God created him to be. He understood something powerful. Your uniqueness is your advantage. Your difference is your distinction. Your originality is your opportunity. You see, when Marcus stopped looking at what others had and started developing what he had, doors began to open that no man could shut. He discovered that his so-called limitations were actually his innovations. What he thought was holding him back was actually setting him apart. Listen carefully, comparison is the thief of joy, but it's also the robber of destiny. When you're constantly measuring yourself against others, you're using the wrong measuring stick. The only measure that matters is whether you're becoming who God created you to be. Think about Paul in the Bible. He said, I press toward the mark for the prize of the high calling. Notice he didn't say he was pressing towards someone else's mark. He was focused on his own race, his own calling, his own prize. Some of you today are running somebody else's race. You're chasing somebody else's dream. You're pursuing somebody else's purpose. But I want to tell you, it's time to get back in your own lane. It's time to focus on your own assignment. It's time to pursue your own purpose. You know, when Jesus was teaching, he told Peter, feed my sheep. He didn't say, see how other shepherds are feeding their sheep. He didn't say, copy the successful ministry models. He said, you feed my sheep. In other words, focus on what I've called you to do. Let me tell you about my friend Rachel. She was a single mother struggling to raise 3 kids while building her career. She kept looking at other women who seemed to have it all together, perfect families, perfect careers, perfect lives. But then Rachel did something transformative. She stopped comparing her struggle to their success. She started focusing on her own progress, not their perfection. She began celebrating her own victories, no matter how small. She understood something powerful. Progress isn't about keeping up with others. It's about moving forward from where you are. Today, Rachel is thriving, not because her circumstances suddenly became perfect, but because she learned to focus on her own journey. She realized that every step forward, no matter how small, was a victory worth celebrating. She stopped waiting for big breakthroughs and started appreciating small progress. Let me tell you something powerful. When you focus on yourself, you start noticing things you've been overlooking. You start seeing the seeds of greatness God has planted in your life. You start recognizing opportunities you've been missing because you were too busy watching somebody else's success story. Think about Martha in the Bible. She was so distracted by what Mary wasn't doing that she missed what Jesus was doing right in her own house. Some of you are like Martha. You're so focused on what others aren't doing, what they should be doing, how they're doing it wrong, that you're missing your own moment with God. You know, the enemy loves to keep you distracted by other people's lives, because if you ever fully focus on what God has put in you, if you ever truly develop what He's given you, if you ever really concentrate on your own purpose, you'll be unstoppable. Let me tell you about David again. When he was tending sheep, nobody was watching. Nobody was posting it on social media. Nobody was giving him awards, but he was developing his skills, strengthening his faith, preparing for his destiny. He was focused on being faithful where he was. Some of you today are in a season of preparation, but you're too busy watching others in their season of manifestation. Let me tell you something. Your preparation is just as important as their manifestation. Your behind-the-scenes development is just as crucial as their public success. Think about Jesus. For 30 years, he lived a quiet life as a carpenter. He wasn't comparing himself to other religious leaders. He wasn't worried about what others were achieving. He was focused on preparing for his purpose, growing in wisdom, being ready for his time. And that's what I love about those 30 years of Jesus' life. He didn't rush his season. He didn't try to prematurely step into his ministry because others were already preaching and teaching. He stayed focused on his own timing, his own development, his own preparation. Let me tell you something today, your time is coming. But while you're waiting, don't waste your waiting. While you're preparing, don't despise your preparation. Every season has a purpose, even the seasons when it seems like nothing is happening. You know, we live in an instant society, instant messages, instant meals, instant success stories. But let me tell you, real growth isn't instant. Real development takes time. Real success requires focus. While others are looking for shortcuts, you need to stay focused on the process. Think about Joseph again. He spent 13 years between the pit and the palace. But in those years, he wasn't focused on his brother's success. He wasn't worried about who was getting ahead while he was stuck in prison. He was focused on developing his character, his leadership, his gift of administration. Some of you are in your pit to palace journey right now. It doesn't look like what you expected. It's taking longer than you planned. But I want to tell you, stay focused on your development. Stay focused on your character. Stay focused on what God is trying to build in you. Let me tell you about my friend James. He was a talented athlete who got injured right before his big break. While he was recovering, he watched his teammates go on to achieve great success. He could have become bitter, resentful, focused on what he was missing. but instead he focused on his recovery, his rehabilitation, his comeback. Today, James is more successful than ever, not because he rushed his healing to keep up with others, but because he stayed focused on his own journey of recovery. He understood something powerful. Your setback is setting you up for a comeback, but only if you stay focused on your own path. You see, when James focused on his own healing instead of others' success, he discovered strengths he never knew he had. His injury forced him to develop new skills, new strategies, new approaches. What looked like a limitation became an innovation. What seemed like a setback became a setup. Let me tell you something powerful today. Sometimes God will put blinders on your life like a racehorse, not to limit you, but to protect your focus. He'll close certain doors, remove certain distractions, even allow certain disappointments, not to harm you, but to help you concentrate on what really matters. Think about Nehemiah. When he was rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem, his enemies tried to distract him. They invited him to meetings, spread rumors, attempted to pull his focus away from his assignment. But Nehemiah's response was profound. He said, I am doing a great work and I cannot come down. Some of you need to declare that over your life today. When social media tries to distract you with everyone else's success, declare, I am doing a great work. When comparison tries to steal your joy, declare, I cannot come down. When others try to pull you into their drama, their gossip, their negativity, declare, I am focused on my assignment. You know, the Bible says in Proverbs that as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. Notice it doesn't say as others think about him or as he thinks about others. Your life moves in the direction of your focus. Your future is shaped by what captures your attention. Let me tell you about my friend Lisa. She was a single woman in her late 30s, and everywhere she looked, she saw people getting married, having children, living what seemed like perfect lives. But instead of letting comparison steal her joy, she made a decision to focus on becoming the best version of herself. She invested in her education, developed her gifts, served in her community, grew in her relationship with God. She wasn't waiting for life to begin when she got married. She was living life fully right where she was. She understood something powerful. Your season of singleness isn't a waiting room, it's a preparation room. Let me tell you something today. You don't have to wait for circumstances to change to start living your best life. You don't have to wait for someone else's approval to pursue your dreams. You don't have to wait for perfect conditions to begin your journey. The only person you need to focus on is you. Think about Caleb in the Bible. When 10 spies came back with a negative report, focusing on the giants in the land, Caleb stayed focused on God's promise. He didn't let their perspective change his conviction. He didn't let their fear contaminate his faith. 45 years later, he was still going strong, still claiming his mountain. Some of you today are letting other people's negative reports affect your positive outlook. You're letting their doubts dim your dreams. You're letting their limitations label your life. But I want to tell you, it's time to be like Caleb. Keep your focus on God's promises, not people's problems. You know, in the story of the 10 lepers Jesus healed, only one came back to give thanks. I believe one reason the others didn't return was that they were too busy comparing their healing, too busy showing everyone their miracle, too focused on what others thought to remember who healed them. Let me tell you about my friend Antonio. He started a small business in his garage while his colleagues were climbing corporate ladders, getting promotions, earning big salaries. People told him he was foolish to leave his stable job. But Antonio stayed focused on his vision, not their opinions. He understood something powerful. When God gives you a dream, He doesn't consult with your critics. When He plants a vision in your heart, He doesn't take a vote from your doubters. Your focus needs to be on His voice, not their voices. Today, Antonio's company employs hundreds of people, not because he followed the sea followed, because he followed his calling. Not because he focused on others' opinions, but because he focused on God's direction. As I close today, I want you to understand something life-changing. Your greatest competition is not other people, it's the untapped potential within you. Your biggest obstacle is not someone else's success, it's your unfocused attention. Your real limitation is not what others are doing, it's what you're not doing. The scripture says in Philippians 1:6, being confident of this very thing, that He who has begun a good work in you will complete it until the day of Jesus Christ. Notice it says in you, not in them, not in others, but in you. I declare today is your day to shift your focus. It's your time to stop looking around and start looking within. It's your season to stop comparing and start completing what God has started in your life. Remember, you are not running their race, you are running your race. You are not living their life, you are living your life. You are not fulfilling their purpose, you are fulfilling your purpose. From this day forward, make a decision that you're going to focus on your own growth, your own development, your own relationship with God. When thoughts of comparison come, shake them off. When distractions try to pull you away, stay focused. When others try to make you feel less than, stand tall in who God created you to be. Because here's the truth, God didn't create you to be a copy, He created you to be an original. He didn't design you to fit in, He designed you to stand out. He didn't call you to watch others' success, He called you to walk in your own success. Your best days are not behind you, they are ahead of you. Your greatest victories are not in someone else's story, they are in your story. Your brightest moments are not in watching others shine, they are in letting your own light shine. Now go forth with confidence, knowing that as you focus on becoming who God created you to be, every step you take is ordering your success. Every decision you make is directing your destiny. And every day you live is drawing you closer to your divine purpose. This is your time. This is your season. This is your moment to rise up and become everything God has called you to be. Not by looking at others, but by looking within. Not by comparing yourself, but by completing yourself. Not by focusing on their journey, but by focusing on your journey. You are blessed, you are favored, you are destined for greatness, not because of who others are, but because of who God created you to be. Now go forth and live your best life.